Everyone in the room is broadcasting. Their face, their hands, the way they laugh at jokes that aren't funny, the way they go quiet when their name is mentioned. Every social interaction is a full-body confession, and most people never realize they're talking. But here's the thing. There's always one person in the room who isn't. They don't appear cold. They don't seem distant. They ask you questions. They listen. They nod. By the end of the conversation, you feel understood. Maybe for the first time. You feel seen. What you don't realize is this. You did all the talking. You revealed your fears, your goals, your wounds. You handed them a complete map of your psychology, and they gave you nothing in return. Not because they were hiding, because they were empty. Strategically, deliberately, empty. This is Law 5, the blank canvas. They didn't ask a single dangerous question. Modern culture has a religion, and the name of that religion is authenticity. We're told to be ourselves, to show up fully, to wear our truth on our sleeve. It sounds like wisdom, it sounds like freedom, it's tactical suicide. When you're authentic, you're not being brave, you're being legible. Your micro-expressions, your vocal tone, the slight tension in your jaw when someone challenges you. All of it is live intelligence broadcast to anyone paying attention. And predators pay attention. Every reaction you have is a data point. Every time you get defensive, you've confirmed a pressure point. Every time you over-explain, you've shown someone exactly where you feel exposed. Every time you need the last word, you've handed them a lever. You think you're communicating. You're being inventoried. The imperial mind reads it differently. They read it as a blueprint. Because here's what being yourself actually costs you in a high-stakes environment. The nervous laugh. That's insecurity confirmed. The strong opinion on day one. That's a fixed coordinate. Someone now knows exactly where to aim. The need to be the funniest person at the table. That's a hunger they can use to manipulate you for years. Think about a conversation where you said almost nothing. Just tell me more. Just, why do you think that? Within 30 minutes, you knew the other person's childhood wound, their financial anxiety, their opinion of their own boss. They knew nothing about you. Zero. You gained a full psychological profile while spending no energy at all. That's not an accident. That's the blank canvas in practice. Your desire to be understood is a leak. It's a tax you pay every day to people who haven't earned the knowledge. You think sharing yourself creates connection. Sometimes it does. But in rooms where power is real, boardrooms, negotiating tables, first impressions with rivals, it creates exposure. And exposed people can be moved. Here's what that actually looks like. The person who always needs approval gets passed over for the promotion. Not because they weren't qualified, but because someone sensed the hunger and decided a hungry person is a manageable person. The negotiator who talks too much about why he needs the deal loses the deal, because the other side now knows exactly how much rope they have. Need, when it's visible, becomes a handle, and anyone who finds your handle can lead you anywhere they want. The question isn't whether to protect yourself. The question is how to do it without coming across as a cold, hollow statue. Because if you just go blank and silent, people notice. They feel the uncanny valley. They know something's off. So how do you stay empty without scaring everyone away? The answer is what we call social projection, and it's stranger than you think. The human brain cannot tolerate a void. This isn't philosophy. It's neuroscience. When we encounter someone who is emotionally neutral, who gives us nothing to grab onto, our subconscious goes into overdrive. It starts projecting. It starts filling in the blanks, using our own psychology as the paint. If you're a narcissist, you look at someone's silence and assume they're in awe of you. If you're insecure, you look at that same silence and assume they're judging you. If you're a liar, and you know you're a liar, you look at that silence and assume they're onto you. The blank canvas doesn't do anything. The other person does everything. They build a version of you inside their own head, using their own fears and desires as the raw material. And then, they trust that version, because people trust what they helped create. Machiavelli understood this early. Power doesn't come from what you reveal. It comes from what you withhold. When you say less than necessary, people don't see emptiness, they see depth. And they begin to fill that depth with their own meaning. Now let's make this concrete. Imagine sitting across from a senior executive at the beginning of a meeting. You say almost nothing in the first 5 minutes. You match their energy. You ask one question. You listen completely. By the time the meeting ends, they feel a strange warmth toward you, a kinship. You gave them a blank wall. They painted their own portrait on it, and now they like the painting, and they think it's you. But here's where this gets dangerous. If you hold the blank too long, if you never give them anything to hold, people start to feel the mechanism underneath. They feel the strategy. That uncanny valley sensation kicks in. They realize you're playing a game. To prevent that, you need to paint, not from your real palette, from theirs. This is the chameleon's technique, and it's the heart of the law. The year is 1814. Napoleon's empire has collapsed. Europe is a scorched ruin, and the great powers have gathered at the Congress of Vienna to divide what's left. At the center of the table is a man who should not be alive, Charles Maurice de Talleyrand. A bishop who betrayed the church, a revolutionary who betrayed the king, a minister who betrayed Napoleon. Every faction in that room has a reason to have him executed. He represents France, the defeated nation. He walks into Vienna with no army, no leverage, and no allies. And yet something strange starts happening. The Tsar of Russia leaves a private meeting with Talleyrand, convinced the Frenchman is his only true friend in all of Europe. The British envoy believes Talleyrand is the only man who genuinely understands the necessity of balance of power. His enemies feel a strange, comforting alignment in his presence, as if he fundamentally gets them in a way no one else does. How does a man who betrayed everyone win the loyalty of everyone? He didn't offer them his vision. He reflected theirs. When Talleyrand sat with the Tsar, he became a romantic and a mystic, speaking in the language of moral destiny, the spiritual grandeur of Russia's historical mission, the sacred obligation of great powers to preserve civilization. Alexander ate it up. He felt seen. He felt understood by a man who had, weeks before, been his enemy. When Talleyrand sat with the British, the same man became a cold, pragmatic strategist, speaking purely in terms of equilibrium, predictable stability, and the cold mathematics of long-term self-interest. The British envoy thought, finally, a man who speaks sense. The Austrian Prince Metternich, one of the sharpest minds at that Congress, privately noted that Talleyrand was the one man whose position he could never quite fix. Every meeting, Talleyrand seemed slightly different, not inconsistent, not suspicious. just perfectly aligned, like water taking the shape of whatever container it was poured into. That's the key. Water doesn't look like a shape. It looks like agreement. He didn't change his position, he changed his surface. Because each man saw his own reflection in Talleyrand, each man stopped treating the Frenchman as a foreign minister and started treating him as an extension of themselves. They lowered their guard. They spoke freely in his presence, about the things they actually wanted, about the alliances they'd actually make, about the prices they were actually willing to pay. Talleyrand collected it all, and then, quietly, he played them against each other using the very intelligence they'd handed him. The Tsar's secret contempt for the Austrian position, the British fear of Russian expansion, the Prussian hunger for territory that alarmed everyone else. He didn't manufacture these tensions. He just illuminated them. By the time the Congress ended, France, the defeated nation, the aggressor, the country that had spent 20 years destabilizing all of Europe, had surrendered almost no territory. Not because of military strength, not because of moral authority, because one man held up a mirror while everyone else fought over the reflection. He didn't save France with an army. He saved it with a surface. Talleyrand wasn't empty inside. The blank canvas isn't nihilism. It isn't having no self. It's having a self so disciplined, so secure, that it can wear any face the situation requires and feel no pull to prove what's underneath. Let's bring this forward 150 years. In 2008, during the early days of a major acquisition negotiation, the CEO of a mid-sized tech company sat across from a private equity firm. His company needed the deal. They'd burned through 2 funding rounds. The board was restless, and he'd been working this relationship for 8 months. He walked in with numbers, a deck, and energy. The lead partner across the table said almost nothing. Not hostile, not warm, just present, waiting. Every time the CEO finished a point, there was a pause. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and the CEO, unable to tolerate the silence, filled it. Every single time, he filled it with concessions he hadn't planned to make, with context that revealed how desperate the timeline was, with qualifiers that showed exactly where his floor was. The partner never asked for any of it. The CEO just gave it away, into the silence. By the end of the meeting, the partner had a complete picture of the company's leverage, its urgency, and its minimum acceptable terms, and had offered nothing in return. The final deal came in 22% below the CEO's target. He signed it because he had no choice. He'd already told them he had no choice. The silence didn't cost the CEO the deal. His inability to sit inside it did. He didn't lose at the end of the meeting. He lost the moment he filled the first silence. Now watch how the same dynamic plays differently when the canvas is held. The master enters the same type of negotiation. Different company, different year, same pressure. But he's done something before walking in the room. He's stripped the need from his face, not the desire, the need. He still wants the deal. He just doesn't require it in a way the other side can smell. When the silence comes, he doesn't fill it. He looks at them, calmly, almost pleasantly, and waits. The silence shifts. What was a pressure tactic becomes a shared discomfort, and now the partner is the one who has to decide whether to break it, whether to show his hand, whether to be the one who needs it to move. This is the inversion. The person who can tolerate stillness longer holds the frame. Every second the other side breaks before you do is a second of intelligence. a revelation of their urgency, their interest, their ceiling. The blank canvas doesn't just protect information, it extracts it automatically. The ego cannot stand a vacuum. When you meet someone who doesn't offer a strong personality of their own, who simply reflects yours, your ego rushes in to fill the empty space. You start talking, you explain your why, you share your grievances, you tell them what you want and what you fear. You think you're having a conversation, you're undergoing an interrogation. The mirror is a siphon. You're doing all the work, burning all the energy, leaking all the data. The master is in a state of pure input, cold, still, mapping. By the time you stop talking, they have a complete schematic of your psychological architecture. They know what makes you feel superior. They know what makes you feel small. They know the name of the rival you pretend not to care about. They know the thing your boss said to you 18 months ago that you're still carrying. They know how to move you, and they'll never use brute force to do it. They won't push you. They'll lead you gently, naturally, using the specific vocabulary of your own desires into positions you'll believe you arrived at yourself. Machiavelli understood this. Power isn't taken from what you say. It's taken from what others reveal in your presence. When you say less than necessary, you don't create meaning. You create space. And in that space, people expose themselves. They bring the power with them. You simply hold the surface that reflects it. But the mirror has a flaw. A dangerous one, and if you don't understand it, you'll lose yourself in the very technique that's supposed to protect you. Every physical mirror has two components: the glass, which you see through, and the silvering, the opaque layer on the back that makes the reflection possible. Without the silvering, you don't have a mirror, you have a window. Everyone can see right through you. Your will is the silvering. This is where almost everyone breaks. It always starts the same way. As the other person starts to trust you, starts to share more, offer warmth, treat you like a confidant, you'll feel something real. A chemical pull toward liking them, a sense of kinship, a temptation to match their vulnerability with your own. The moment you feel that pull, the silvering is cracking. Here's the field rule. For every bonding moment they offer you, you mentally document one operational weakness. Not to be cruel, to stay cold, to remember that you are the observer behind the glass, not the face inside it. They lower their guard and confess a fear. Your instinct says, reciprocate. Give them something real so they don't feel alone. Don't. Reflect the vulnerability back at them. It sounds like you've been carrying a significant weight. They feel seen, they feel understood, they feel safe. You have filed that fear under leverage and maintained your position behind the glass. Michel de Montaigne wrote in the 16th century, "We must reserve a back shop, all our own, entirely free, wherein to settle our true liberty." The blank canvas only works if you have that back shop, an internal life that is rich, untouched, and completely yours. If you have nothing inside, your blankness will feel like emptiness to other people. They'll sense it and recoil. This is the failure mode most people don't see coming. They hear blank canvas and think it means hollow. They think emptiness is the goal. They strip away their opinions, their reactions, their warmth. And what they create is not a mirror. It's a void. And voids feel predatory. People back away from voids. The distinction is everything. A void has nothing behind it. A mirror has the silvering, dense, opaque, intentional. And that backing is what makes the reflection possible in the first place. The blank canvas isn't emptiness. It's fullness that's been disciplined into stillness. This is why Law 1, the internal citadel, comes first. You can't hold a canvas if you don't have a frame. The frame is your internal world, your real values, your actual goals, your private clarity about who you are and what you want. Without that, you're not practicing strategic emptiness. You're just lost. But if your interior is full, if you've done the work of the prior architecture, then your blankness will feel like depth, like presence, like a still ocean that goes all the way down. People aren't afraid of what's empty. They're afraid of what's full but hidden. Your silence should feel like weight, not absence. That's the difference between a master and someone who just goes quiet. This is how you implement the law. 3 phases, deployable in your next conversation. Phase 1, echo calibration. For the first 5 minutes of any high-stakes interaction, you are prohibited from introducing your own tone, posture, or energy. Mirror theirs at 80% intensity. If they speak fast and sharp, you speak fast and sharp, slightly softer. If they lean back, you lean back. If they use technical jargon, you use the same jargon. Too perfect, and it feels fake. Too far off, and it fails. 80% is the invisible threshold. Present enough to register, restrained enough to disappear. Watch what happens to their eyes. When your cadence matches theirs, the brain's threat detection phase ends. They stop processing you as an other and begin to process your presence as something closer to their own inner voice. That's the activation of the narcissistic loop. Once it activates, they stop being guarded. Phase 2, the vocabulary phone. Every person has a power vocabulary. 5 to 10 specific words or phrases they use to signal who they are and what they value. Someone might say efficiency and leverage. Another says impact and authenticity. These aren't just words. They're identity markers. When they use one, do not substitute your own synonym. Don't replace transparency with honesty. Use their exact word. When you respond with their precise language, you bypass their critical filters entirely. You're not speaking to their rational mind. You're speaking to their foundation. I agree. Transparency is the only way to ensure long-term growth. That sentence lands differently than any version of it in your own words, because it sounds like their own thought coming back to them. The moment you paraphrase, you remind them you're a separate person. Stay inside their language. Don't leave. Phase 3, the silvering check. Continuously monitor your own interior. Every time you feel warmth, real warmth, toward the person you're mirroring, that's your cue to reinforce the distance. Not coldly, not visibly, internally. File the warmth. Note the moment. Return to the observer position. The danger isn't that you'll crack openly. The danger is that you'll start giving small things away. A real opinion, a personal detail, a moment of unguarded honesty, and tell yourself it doesn't matter. It does. Each one costs you a piece of the silvering. If you're executing this correctly, 3 things will start happening on their side. They'll start the information flood, stopping self-editing, leaking goals and vulnerabilities and private grievances, because they feel at home in your presence. They'll develop the assumption of loyalty. Because they can't imagine betraying themselves, and you look exactly like themselves, they assume you're on their side, and eventually they'll follow you. Not because you pushed, but because when you finally make a move, it'll feel to them like their own idea. You've gone from participant to architect. If the full protocol feels like too much, start smaller. Match someone's posture and breathing rhythm tonight. That's it. Just that. Notice when their scanning phase ends. Notice the shift in how they look at you. Then graduate from there. There's one final level to this law, the hardest to execute, the most revealing to understand. At some point, someone will call you on it. A sharp person, a master in their own right. They'll sense the mechanism. They'll poke. Not to understand you, but to get a reaction, to see if the mirror is real or a performance. You're being very mysterious today. Most people, when challenged, feel the urge to explain themselves, to clarify, to prove they're not a threat. That urge is the crack in the silvering. The moment you explain, you become legible. You've handed them the roadmap they were fishing for. The correct response is simple and devastating. You seem very interested in my mystery. Why is that? You didn't defend, you didn't deflect, you turned the light around. Now they're looking at themselves, at their own curiosity, their own exposure, instead of looking at you. By mirroring their question back, you've done something subtle and complete. You've made their probe into a confession. This is why the blank canvas is the ultimate weapon of psychological endurance. While everyone else in the world is burning energy, performing, impressing, explaining, defending, you're simply present, receiving, accumulating. The silence creates a vacuum. The ego cannot resist a vacuum, and so the truth fills it. Every time, they'll tell you their secrets just to get you to tell yours. They will never know you had nothing to tell. When they're finished, you'll still be blank. You'll have everything. They'll have nothing. Here's your practice for the next 24 hours. In your next social interaction, a meeting, a dinner, a phone call, stop sharing your opinions first. Stop trying to be the smart one or the funny one or the one who's seen the most. Just watch. Just listen. Give them a calm, neutral presence and a few open-ended questions. No agenda. No performance. Just space. Watch what happens. Watch how they rush to fill it. Watch the information that comes out. Things they wouldn't tell a therapist. Things they've never said out loud. Watch how your silence starts to feel to them like a kind of profound understanding. Even though you haven't said anything at all, there will be a pull, almost physical, to fill the silence yourself, to crack a joke, to share an opinion, to let them know where you stand. That pull is the desire to be known. Let it pass. This is Law 5. You've built the walls. You've poured the foundation. You've learned the armor and the absence. Now you have the mask that isn't a face, the mask that is a surface. Law 6 is called the Law of Controlled Vulnerability, because once you've mastered the blank canvas, you have to learn how to crack it on purpose, to let people believe they've finally broken through, and use that belief as the sharpest tool in the archive. But understand something before you go. Most people will never reach this. Not because the protocol is too complex. Because their need to be seen will always be louder than their discipline. They'll get close and then give something away. Every time, that need will always betray them. This is Noctis Mentis. What is undefined cannot be controlled. The next law will be revealed when the archive advances.